Dreaming of getting revenge on her cheating husband, the woman put on her very best evening gown and headed to an upscale restaurant. But at the entrance, she was stopped by an elderly woman with a spiritual air. "Revenge must be beautiful," the woman said. "Follow me. I have something to tell you." And when her husband walked into his office the next morning, his blood ran cold at what he saw. Naya had been married for 7 years. She married Julian Thorpe right after graduating from college. Back then, he was already heading a department at a major corporation, but over time, it was precisely thanks to her that her husband was able to reach new heights in his career and become a director. However, she didn't yet know that he had been using her ideas, thanks to which he had conquered those peaks. Naya walked out of the grocery store, clutching 2 heavy bags against her chest. The November wind whipped through her hair, and she shivered, picking up her pace. Her path home took her through the shopping district, where boutiques with bright display windows were lined up one after another. Usually she walked past them without even slowing down, but today something made her stop. In the window of one shop, a magnificent evening gown was on display. Emerald green, form-fitting, with thin straps and a scattering of silver sequins that shimmered under the spotlights. Naya froze, unable to tear her eyes away. The dress was incredibly beautiful. It was the kind you wear to high society galas or formal receptions. She imagined herself in it. She imagined how the fabric would slide over her dark skin, how it would shimmer in the light, how perfectly it would hug her figure. But then another thought crept into her head, cold and unpleasant. What's the use of it if you have nowhere to wear it anyway? 7 years of marriage and not a single night out, not a single event where one could show up in a dress like that. Julian constantly went to business meetings, corporate parties, and presentations, while she stayed home. Cooking dinner, cleaning, waiting. Always waiting. Nia sighed heavily and looked away from the window. The bags were weighing down her arms, and she needed to keep moving. She had taken only a few steps when a female voice called out from behind. "Nia! Girl, is that you?" Nia turned around. Standing before her was a tall woman in a beige coat and dark sunglasses. She took off the glasses, and Nia recognized her. "Tasha, what a surprise!" Nia smiled, feeling the tension of the last few minutes fade. "You're telling me. How long has it been?" Tasha smiled broadly and hugged her, barely missing one of the grocery bags. Nia took a step back, looking over her former classmate. Tasha had changed. A lot. From the fun-loving student who was always late for class and forgetting her notes, she had turned into a true boss lady. Expensive coat, hair laid perfectly, confident posture. Even the scent of her perfume screamed status and money. "You've changed so much," Nia couldn't help but say. "Life changes you," Tasha laughed. "Listen, let's go sit in a cafe and chat. I'm actually not in a rush to get anywhere." Nia looked at her grocery bags and thought for a moment. No one was home. Julian wouldn't be back until evening. Dinner could be cooked later. And when was the last time she met up with friends? A year ago? 2? "Let's go," she agreed, thinking about how she never went anywhere anyway. They turned into a small coffee shop on the corner. Inside, it was warm and cozy, smelling of fresh pastries and coffee. Tasha chose a table by the window, draped her coat over the back of the chair, and sat opposite Nia. "Cappuccino?" she asked, flipping through the menu. "Sure," Nia nodded, stashing her bags under the table. The waitress took their order and disappeared behind the counter. Tasha leaned her elbows on the table, looking intently at Nia. "So spill it. How's life? What are you up to?" "Oh, same as everyone," Nia shrugged. "House, home life, been married for 7 years now." "Seriously?" Tasha whistled. "And here I am, divorced a year ago, realized my career was more important to me. Now I have my own business. A beauty salon, 3 locations across the city." "That's amazing," Nia said sincerely. "You were always goal-oriented." "Me?" Tasha laughed. "Girl, I didn't know what I was doing in college. You were the star of our class. Remember how the professors used to rave about your projects? Especially in architecture." Nia lowered her gaze. The waitress brought their coffee, and she wrapped her hands around the warm cup, as if trying to warm herself up. "So what about you?" Tasha continued, stirring sugar into her cappuccino. "Did you become an architect like you dreamed?" "No." Naya shook her head and took a sip. "It just didn't work out." "Why?" Tasha raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You were the best student in the program. And the project spinning in that head of yours? I still remember your senior thesis. Everyone said you were going to have a huge career." Nia remained silent. How could she explain that after the wedding everything changed? That Julian said work could wait? "First, we need to set up the house, and then the kids will come." Only the kids never came, and work remained somewhere on a list. "Then you know," Tasha leaned closer, "I recently came across a project, and I was sure it was yours. It seemed like your style, so recognizable, you know? Light, airy, but functional at the same time. But then I saw that it was designed by Julian Thorpe, and I was actually disappointed." Nia's heart skipped a beat. "Julian Thorpe?" she asked again, feeling her mouth go dry. That's my husband." "Your husband?" Tasha's eyes went wide. "Wow, I didn't know you married him. So it's a family business then? You come up with the designs and he executes them?" "Not exactly," Nia said slowly. "Which project are you talking about?" "The little Italian restaurant on the riverfront," Tasha answered, pulling out her phone. "Here, look. Opened about 3 months ago. I was there the other day. It's beautiful, by the way. The interior is just magical." She held the phone across the table. Nia took it with trembling fingers and looked at the photos. Light walls with textured plaster, arched doorways, vintage chandeliers, an open kitchen facing the dining hall, terracotta tiles on the floor, live plants in clay pots. Every detail, every element was familiar to her because she had invented it herself. A year ago, she was sitting at home, bored, and out of having nothing to do, she started sketching. Just for her soul. She drafted a concept for a small Italian-style restaurant. She showed it to Julian when he came home from work. He looked, nodded, and said, "Interesting." And she hadn't thought about it since. But now her project existed in reality. Only the authorship didn't belong to her. "Beautiful, right?" Tasha took the phone back. "I immediately thought of you. That style is unmistakable." "Yes, beautiful," Nia replied hollowly. Her heart was beating faster. Something was tightening in her chest, making it hard to take a full breath. She couldn't even imagine that Julian would use her ideas without asking permission, or at least consulting her. How could he? "Nia, you okay?" Tasha got worried. "You went so pale." "I'm fine," Nia forced a smile. "Just a little tired. Listen, can you send me the link to the article about this restaurant? I'm interested in reading it." "Of course." Tasha quickly typed something on her phone and sent it. There was a big article in an architectural magazine. "Your husband gave an interview, by the way. Talked about the concept, about his sources of inspiration." Sources of inspiration. Nia clenched her teeth. They talked for another 20 minutes about various trifles. Tasha talked about her salons, plans to open another branch, and how hard it was to find good stylists. Nia listened with half an ear, nodding mechanically and inserting standard phrases. When they finally said goodbye and parted ways, Nia felt like her legs were carrying her automatically. The grocery bag seemed weightless. The whole world around her seemed to dim, sounds became muffled, and people on the streets turned into blurry silhouettes. She walked home with one thought spinning in her head. Her own husband stole her idea. Just took it and claimed it. Didn't even ask. Didn't even hint. Julian always said she should stay home, that her place was creating comfort, supporting him, being his reliable home base. And meanwhile, he was building a career on her talents. Nia stopped at a traffic light, staring at the red signal. Inside, everything was churning. Resentment, bitterness, confusion. 7 years she sacrificed her dreams for him. 7 years she believed they were a team, that they had common goals. And now it turned out he was just using her. The light turned green. Nia crossed the street and picked up her pace. She needed to get home, open her laptop, find that article, and see everything with her own eyes. Nia burst into the apartment, nearly dropping the grocery bags. Her fingers trembled as she pulled off her coat. Her boots were left in the middle of the hallway. There was no time to put them away. She walked into the kitchen, mechanically unloaded the groceries onto the table, and froze, staring at the closed laptop on the counter. Inside, everything tightened with foreboding. Tasha had sent the link. She just needed to open it and look, but her hands wouldn't obey. Nia took a deep breath, walked over to the laptop, and opened it. The screen came to life, illuminating the desktop with a photo, a picture of them together on vacation 3 years ago. Back then, they were still laughing, hugging, making plans. She opened the browser and clicked the link. The article loaded almost instantly. A large headline read, "A new word in the restaurant business, an Italian soul on the riverbank." The very first photo hit her like a slap in the face. The restaurant hall. Light walls with textured plaster, which she had so carefully selected in her sketches. Arched doorways leading to different zones. Vintage wrought iron chandeliers with warm light. Terracotta tiles laid in a herringbone pattern. Live olive trees in large clay pots. "This can't be," Nia whispered, feeling a heavy resentment spreading through her chest. She scrolled down the page. Another photo, an open kitchen with copper cookware on hooks, a bar counter made of dark wood, a cozy terrace overlooking the waterfront. Every detail screamed that this was her work, her vision, her soul, poured into every line. Nia continued reading. The text was full of praise, enthusiastic. The author described how harmoniously elements of traditional Italian architecture were combined with modern solutions, how thoughtfully the zoning of the space was done, how successfully the color palette was chosen. "Architect Julian Thorpe has created a true masterpiece," read one of the lines. Architect Julian Thorpe. Nia clenched her teeth. With every line, it became harder to breathe. The words blurred before her eyes, but she forced herself to read on. In the interview, Mr. Thorpe shared that inspiration came to him during a trip to Tuscany. He wanted to transport the atmosphere of small Italian towns to our city, to create a place where every guest feels like part of an Italian family. Trip to Tuscany? What trip? Julian had never been to Italy, but she had dreamed of it since her college days. She studied the architecture of Italian cities through books and movies, collected photos and clippings from magazines. Nia scrolled down to the end of the article. There it was written in black and white. Project provided by Julian Thorpe. Copyright protected. Copyright. On her work. She slammed the laptop shut and backed away from the table as if it were radiating danger. Her hands were shaking. A mixture of rage, pain, and bewilderment boiled inside her. How could he? How dared he? She pulled herself together. Julian would return in a couple of hours. She needed to cook dinner as usual, meet him as if nothing had happened, and then calmly talk. Perhaps it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe he wanted to make it a surprise, bring her idea to life, but didn't have time to tell her. Nia almost believed this while taking chicken and vegetables out of the refrigerator, almost believed it while chopping onions and carrots, almost believed it while frying the meat in the pan. But with every minute, an inner voice insisted. He didn't want to say anything. He kept silent on purpose. She set the table, placed the plates, laid out the silverware. Everything as usual. A familiar ritual repeated day after day for 7 years. She placed the hot dish on the table, poured water into a pitcher, folded napkins, automatically, mechanically. And then she sat at the table and opened the laptop again. The article was still on the screen. Nia reread it. Then again. She searched for any mention of herself, any hint that someone else participated in creating the project. But no, only Julian's name. Only his photograph at the end of the article in a business suit with a confident smile against the backdrop of the restaurant. She went so deep into her thoughts that she didn't hear the front door slam, didn't hear steps in the hallway. She only snapped out of it when Julian walked into the kitchen. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" His voice was cheerful, upbeat. He took off his jacket, hung it on the back of a chair, and headed toward her, intending to kiss her. Naya instinctively pulled away. Julian froze. "I don't get it." He frowned, looking at her with bewilderment. "What happened?" Naya silently turned the laptop screen toward him. Julian shifted his gaze to the monitor. She saw his face change. First confusion, then recognition, and then a slight smirk. "Don't you want to tell me something?" Naya tried with all her might to keep her voice steady. Julian reached for a chair, sat opposite her, and leaned his elbows on the table, as if preparing for a normal dinner conversation. "Ah, that. So you found out about this." He smirked, and that smirk cut deeper than any words. "I urgently needed something extraordinary, and your idea turned out to be exactly that. You see, the client wanted something special, and there was no time for development. I remembered your sketches, and they fit perfectly." "Fit perfectly," Nia repeated, feeling everything inside turn cold. "And you didn't even think to ask for permission?" "Honey." Julian reached out a conciliatory hand toward her, but she yanked hers away. "We're family. Why these formalities? I got paid good money for this project, and we paid off the mortgage. Isn't that great?" "Great!" Naya barely held back a scream. "We paid off the mortgage at the expense of my project, which I didn't even know about? Even so, but you told me something else. You said you took a loan at a favorable interest rate." "Well, not exactly a loan." Julian shrugged. "Nia, you're exaggerating. It's just work. Just a project." "Just a project?" Naya's voice trembled. "It's my work, Julian. My ideas, my sketches, my vision. I spent weeks thinking everything through, every detail, every element, and you just took it and claimed it for yourself." "Baby, don't be offended." He tried to take her hand, but she abruptly stood up from the table. "We're a family. Everything we have is shared. I didn't think this would hurt you so much. You never said you wanted to work as an architect." "Because you told me not to," Nia blurted out. "You said that wives of successful men don't need to work, that my place is at home, that I should create comfort and support you. And you do an excellent job at that." Julian straightened up. His voice became firmer. "Nia, I'm tired. Let's not make a scene over nothing. Dinner is getting cold." "Over nothing?" She couldn't believe her ears. "You stole my idea and call it nothing?" "I didn't steal anything." Julian raised his voice. "Those were just sketches lying around the house. You showed them to me yourself. You said, 'Look what I drew.' I looked. I liked them. I used them. What's the problem?" "The problem is that you should have asked." Nia felt tears streaming down her cheeks. "You could have at least asked for permission, warned me, said you wanted to show them to a client. Damn it, you could have at least credited my name." "Your name?" Julian scoffed. "Nia, you don't understand how business works. The client paid the company. The company pays me. It's my work, my salary. If I started saying that this was invented by my wife, a housewife who doesn't work as an architect, they would simply stop trusting me." Every word hit like a physical blow. Housewife. Who doesn't work? Seriously? Nia's voice became quiet, dangerously quiet. "You stole my idea because you thought I wouldn't find out, and now you're trying to convince me that it's right." "I didn't steal." Julian walked up to her, grabbed her by the shoulders. "Nia, I just used a resource available to me. We are family. We share everything. Your ideas are also our common property." "A resource," she repeated, looking him in the eye. "I'm a resource to you?" "No, of course not." He softened, hugged her. "I expressed myself wrong. Baby, come on, stop it. You know how much I love you. I just wanted everything to be good for us so we could live without debt. You wanted that too, right?" Nia stood in his embrace and felt betrayed, but his words, his tone, his touch. It was all so familiar, so habitual. 7 years together. 7 years she trusted him. "Julian?" She pulled away and looked into his face. "Promise me that you will never use my work without permission again." "I promise." He nodded, stroking her hair. "Of course I promise. I'm sorry it turned out this way. I really didn't want to offend you. I was just rushing, and it didn't occur to me that this would be unpleasant for you." He kissed her, whispered apologies, told her how important she was to him. Naya listened and wanted to believe, wanted to think that it was just a mistake, that he realized he was wrong. That evening they sat at dinner, and Julian talked about work, about new projects, about colleagues. He was charming, attentive, tender, the man she fell in love with once upon a time, and Nia actually stopped being angry with him. But somewhere deep inside, in the farthest corner of her consciousness, a doubt lurked, small, almost imperceptible. It was silent for now, but it already existed. Naya woke up before the alarm. Outside the window, it was just beginning to get light. The gray November morning slowly penetrated the bedroom through the loosely drawn curtains. Next to her, Julian slept, sprawled over half the bed, breathing evenly and calmly. She turned her head and looked at him. Yesterday's conversation still rang in her ears. His words about her being a housewife, about her idea being a shared resource, about him simply using what was at hand. All night, Nia tossed and turned, replaying that scene over and over in her head. He apologized, promised not to do it again. He was tender and attentive, and she believed him because she wanted to believe, because 7 years of marriage had to mean something. But in the morning, in the cold light of the approaching day, everything looked different. Nia quietly got out of bed, put on a robe, and left the bedroom. The kitchen was cool. She turned on the kettle and leaned against the counter, looking out the window. In the courtyard, a maintenance worker was sweeping fallen leaves. An ordinary morning, an ordinary day. While the water was boiling, Nia opened the fridge and started taking out food. Eggs, bacon, tomatoes, bread. She decided to cook a hearty breakfast. She needed to occupy her hands with something so she wouldn't change her mind, wouldn't chicken out, because today she was going to tell him. She would say what she should have said years ago. The eggs sizzled in the pan. Nia chopped vegetables, fried the bacon, brewed coffee, set the table. Everything neat, beautiful, as always. Julian appeared in the kitchen at 7:30, already dressed in a shirt and trousers. His hair was still damp from the shower. The smell of his cologne filled the space. "Good morning." He smiled, walking past her and looking at the plates. "Wow, what a breakfast! What's the occasion?" "None." Naya poured him coffee. "Just felt like it." They sat at the table. Julian immediately picked up his fork, serving himself eggs and bacon. He ate with appetite, scrolling through something on his phone at the same time. Nia watched him and tried to find the right words. She had rehearsed this phrase all morning while cooking, but now, when he was sitting across from her, the words got stuck in her throat. Delicious. Julian looked up from his phone and looked at her. "You're on a roll today." "Julian?" She put her fork down on the plate. "I need to talk to you." He raised his eyebrows but continued chewing. "About what?" Nia clenched her hands into fists under the table, took a full breath. "I want to get a job." Julian froze with his fork halfway to his mouth, slowly lowered it back onto the plate, and his eyes rounded in surprise. "What?" he asked again, as if he hadn't heard right. "I said I want to get a job," Nia repeated more firmly. Julian leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. He looked at her with a studying gaze. "Why did you make such a decision?" There was bewilderment in his voice. "I thought you were happy with our life." "I am," Naya nodded, choosing her words. "But I'm tired of sitting at home. We don't have kids anyway. You constantly say it's too early, that we need to achieve something first, get on our feet more firmly. This way, I'll at least do what I love." What you love, Julian repeated, frowning. What are you talking about? Architecture, she replied. I just want to return to the profession. Julian rubbed the bridge of his nose, clearly thinking over what he heard. Then he took his cup of coffee, took a sip, and put it back on the table. Nia, he began in a conciliatory tone, but you create comfort at home. You cook excellently. Our place is always clean. You manage everything. And when you go to work, there won't be time for that. You understand that? I understand, she nodded, but I'll try to manage. Other women manage. I'll handle it. Other women are other women. Julian leaned forward, looking her in the eyes. Maybe they have different husbands, different conditions. Nia, I need order at home. I need to be able to work calmly, knowing that everything at home is under control. This is important for my career. For your career, Nia repeated. A metallic note cut through her voice. And my career isn't important? What career? Julian shrugged. You haven't worked as an architect for 7 years. A lot has changed in that time. New software, new standards. You'll have to learn everything from scratch. Why do you need this? Because I'm tired of sitting within 4 walls. Nia felt herself starting to boil. I'm tired of being just an attachment to your life. I'm a person too, Julian. I also have dreams, ambitions, desires. I never said you were an attachment. He raised his hands in a defensive gesture. Nia, you're exaggerating. I'm just trying to explain that our life is set up a certain way, and it works. Why change anything? Because I want to. She looked at him. Isn't that enough? Silence hung between them. Julian turned the cup in his hands, clearly looking for arguments. Nia waited, not looking away. She wasn't going to back down. Fine, Julian finally said. Let's assume you find a job. But where are you going to look? You have no experience, no resume. No one will hire you without references. I'll find something, Nia said confidently. I have my degree, I have my portfolio from college. I can create new designs, show what I'm capable of. New designs, Julian chuckled. Nia, it's not as simple as you think. The market is flooded with architects. The competition is huge. You'll be going to interviews for months and getting rejections. Do you really need that? I do, she answered shortly. Julian leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His face hardened. Are there any open positions at your company? Nia asked unexpectedly for herself. The effect was instant. Julian choked on his coffee, started coughing, grabbed a napkin. His face turned red, his eyes watered. Are you serious? He wheezed when he finally caught his breath. Quite, Nia tilted her head, studying his reaction. You said yourself that you have a large company. Surely there are vacancies for architects. No, Julian cut her off sharply, wiping his mouth. That's impossible. Why? Because the owner of our company, Mr. Caldwell, believes that married couples need to work separately. Julian got up from the table, grabbed his jacket. It's his principle. He says personal relationships interfere with professional ones, so not the best idea. Strange principle, Nia noted, watching him nervously button his jacket. I know plenty of married couples who work together perfectly fine. Well, that's not our case. Julian grabbed his briefcase, checked his phone. I have to go. I'm late for a meeting. Your meeting is in an hour, Nia said calmly. You said so yourself yesterday. Julian froze at the door, then turned around. Something flashed in his gaze that Nia couldn't identify. Irritation? Fear? They moved it to an earlier time, he snapped. They called me last night. I forgot to tell you. He left the kitchen. Nia heard him putting on his shoes in the hallway, grabbing his keys. The front door slammed, and she was left alone. She sat at the table, staring at the uneaten breakfast. His plate, his cup, his napkin crumpled and thrown nearby. Everything so hurried, so nervous. Nia got up and walked to the window. Down in the courtyard, Julian appeared, walking briskly toward his car. He got behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove out of the yard without even looking back at the windows of their apartment. Why was he so nervous? Why did he react so sharply to the suggestion of working together? Nia replayed their conversation in her head, trying to understand. The company owner is against married couples. Sounds logical, but why was Julian so scared? Why didn't he even let her finish? Immediately started refusing, inventing reasons. She returned to the table and started clearing the dishes. Her movements were mechanical. Thoughts swarmed in her head. Something was wrong. Something in his behavior, in his words, in his reaction. Nia remembered how he choked on his coffee, how he blushed, how he started sweating, how hurriedly he dressed and ran away, even though the meeting was only in an hour. She didn't understand why he was acting this way. Nia took a sponge and started washing dishes, looking out the window at the gray sky. Nia finished washing the dishes and dried her hands with a towel. The apartment was empty and quiet. Only the ticking of the clock on the wall broke the silence. She checked the time, 8:30. A whole day ahead that needed to be filled with something. Maybe start looking for a job? Open job sites? Update her resume? Nia headed to the living room, intending to grab her laptop, when a sharp ring at the door sounded. She froze. Who could that be at this time? Julian left half an hour ago. He had keys. Neighbors? But they usually didn't come by this early. The ring repeated, more insistent. Nia walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Standing on the landing was a tall woman in a black coat and dark sunglasses. Long chestnut hair fell over her shoulders, her lips painted with bright red lipstick. "Who is it?" Nia asked without opening the door. "Open up, please." The voice was confident, almost demanding. "I need to talk to you." Something in the tone put her on guard. Nia hesitated, but then opened the door anyway. "Yes? What do you want?" The stranger took off her glasses and looked carefully at Nia. Her eyes were brown, sharp, studying. "You're Julian's wife?" she asked with surprise, as if expecting to see someone else. Nia felt her heart skip a beat. How did this woman know her husband's name? "Yes." "And you are?" She raised her eyebrows, gripping the door handle tighter. The stranger smiled. The smile was cold, predatory. "And I am the mother of his future child." Time seemed to stop. Nia heard the words, but couldn't comprehend them. Her brain refused to process the information. Mother, child, Julian. While she stood in a stupor, the woman pushed the door open with a decisive movement. The stranger walked into the apartment as if it were her own home. "What?" Nia finally exhaled, stepping back. "What did you say?" The woman slowly walked through the hallway, looking over the surroundings, glided her gaze over the coat rack, the mirror, the shoe shelf, walked into the living room, examined the furniture, the paintings on the walls, the bookshelves. "Not bad," she drawled, nodding with the look of a connoisseur. "There will be enough room for our child. Although, of course, the nursery will have to be made out of your office. Julian said you don't use it anyway." Nia stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. The words reached her as if through cotton. "Our child. Nursery," Julian said. "Who are you?" she finally squeezed out. The woman turned around, gracefully threw her coat onto the sofa, and sat in an armchair crossing her legs. She was wearing an expensive burgundy dress that hugged her figure. A thin gold necklace glinted on her neck. "My name is Vanessa," she introduced herself, as if they had met at a gala. "I work at the same company as Julian, client relations manager. We met a year and a half ago at a corporate party." A year and a half. Nia felt the ground slipping out from under her feet. For a year and a half, her husband had been seeing another woman, and she knew nothing. "That can't be," she whispered, grabbing the back of a chair. "It very well can be." Vanessa took a phone out of her purse, swiped the screen a few times, and held it out to Nia. "Here, if you don't believe me." Nia took the phone with trembling hands. On the screen was a photo. Julian and this woman hugging, laughing, standing against a backdrop of the sea. He was in shorts and a shirt, she in a bikini and sarong, happy, in love. "That was 3 months ago," Vanessa explained. "We went to Turkey." Julian told you he had a business trip, correct? Nia remembered. 3 months ago, Julian really did leave for a week, said it was an important meeting with investors, needed to discuss everything in person. She'd even walked him to the door, kissed him goodbye, wished him luck, and he went on vacation with a mistress. So here's the deal. Vanessa stood up, stepped closer. She was a head taller than Nia, looking down at her. Julian is mine. If you couldn't give him a child in all these years of marriage, then it's time to vacate the spot for someone who can. You're pregnant? Nia's voice shook. 2 months. Vanessa placed a hand on her stomach, demonstrating. Julian is thrilled. He always wanted a son, said you couldn't give him children, or didn't want to. He never figured out which. That was too much. Too much information, too much pain, too much betrayal. Nia felt everything inside tearing apart. You know what? She stepped toward Vanessa. Her eyes were burning. Get the hell out of here. Excuse me? Vanessa raised a brow, clearly not expecting such a reaction. I said get out! Nia grabbed her by the arm and dragged her toward the exit. Get out of my house! Get your hands off me! Vanessa screamed, struggling. What are you doing? I'm pregnant! I don't give a damn. Nia threw the door open and shoved her husband's mistress onto the landing. Get out and don't ever come back here. You'll regret this, Vanessa shouted, grabbing her coat, which Nia threw after her. Julian will choose me. I'm carrying his child. Get out! Nia slammed the door and leaned her back against it, shaking all over. Silence. Only her own heavy breathing and the pounding of her heart in her temples. Nia slowly slid down the door to the floor, hugged her knees, and let go. Tears flowed on their own, bitter, burning. Just now her world had collapsed. Everything she believed in for 7 years, family, love, trust. It all turned out to be a lie. Julian cheated on her. For 1.5 years he was seeing another woman, went on vacation with her, told her about his life, about a wife who couldn't give him children. And now that woman was pregnant. Nia didn't know how long she sat on the floor. The tears dried, leaving sticky tracks on her cheeks. A void formed inside, cold and heavy. She slowly got up, walked to the bathroom, washed her face with cold water, looked at her reflection in the mirror. Pale face, red eyes, disheveled hair. She looked broken. But somewhere deep inside, under layers of pain and despair, another feeling was born. Anger, rage, a desire for revenge. Nia went back to the bedroom and opened the closet. In the farthest corner hung a dress, that same emerald one she bought 3 years ago on sale, dreaming of wearing it someday. Julian never invited her anywhere she could appear in such an outfit. She took it off the hanger, got out her heels, her makeup bag. If he didn't appreciate her, if he preferred another, then she would show him what she was worth. She would show the whole world. Dreaming of getting revenge on her cheating husband, Nia put on her very best evening gown, carefully applied her makeup, laid her hair. She looked at herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the reflection. Before her stood a beautiful, confident black woman. Not at all the downtrodden housewife she had felt like in recent years. Nia grabbed her clutch and headed to the most expensive restaurant in the city, the one where Julian took important clients but never invited her. At the entrance to the restaurant, it was lively. Cars pulled up one after another, elegantly dressed people stepping out. Nia stopped, suddenly doubting herself. What was she doing here? Why did she come? Revenge must be beautiful. A low female voice sounded from the side. Nia turned around. Standing next to her was an elderly woman in a dark head wrap and a long, colorful dress. Her face was covered in wrinkles, her eyes sharp, piercing. Excuse me? Nia didn't understand. I said, revenge must be beautiful, the woman repeated, looking intently at her. Follow me. I have something to tell you. Are you a fortune teller? Nia remembered seeing women like this before, spiritual types offering readings on the street. You could say that, the woman nodded, but I'm not asking for money. I just want to help. Follow me." Usually, Nia didn't believe in such things, but today was an unusual day. Today, her entire world had crashed. And why not listen to what this woman had to say? She followed her. They turned the corner of the building, where it was quieter and less crowded. The spiritual woman stopped, turned to Nia. "Your husband's name is Julian," she pronounced. And Nia froze. "He's here often with his mistress. Tall, sly, a predator. Dark hair, red lips. I've seen them together more than once." Nia listened and couldn't believe her ears. How did this woman know everything? "How do you—" "I see many things," the woman interrupted her. "Why do you give him access to your ideas? He steals them, and you know nothing. You thought he took only one? You naive girl." "What?" Nia felt a chill run down her spine. "But he said he used only one idea, the Italian restaurant." "The Italian restaurant?" the woman chuckled. "And the shopping mall, and the office building, and the condo complex, everything you've been sketching these years, sitting at home out of boredom. He took your sketches and passed them off as his own, built a career on that." Nia staggered. "That can't be. It can't be that he stole everything." She had drawn so many projects just for herself. She never thought that... Think about it. Do you need a man like that? The woman spread her hands. "He deceives you, steals your ideas, keeps a mistress. What do you see in him?" I don't know." Nia felt tears welling up in her throat again. "Come, I'll show you something." The woman took her by the hand and led her back to the restaurant entrance. They walked inside, luxurious interior, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths. The woman led Nia to a far corner of the lobby where photos hung on the wall. "Look!" She pointed a finger at one of them. Nia stepped closer. The photo captured Julian shaking hands with a respectable man in a suit, both smiling, standing next to a model of a shopping mall. And that model was painfully familiar to Nia. She drew it 2 years ago. Came up with the concept, the layout, the facade, showed it to Julian, shared ideas, and he stole it all. Nia clenched her fists. Everything inside her was boiling. Rage, pain, despair, all mixed into one fiery ball. She stood in front of this photograph and realized she had been used. For 7 years, she was used as a free source of ideas, as a housekeeper, as a prop for an ideal family life. And she knew nothing, believed, loved, waited. But now everything had changed. Nia looked at the woman. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for opening my eyes." "What will you do now?" the woman asked. Nia straightened up, squared her shoulders, wiped her tears. Her hands stopped shaking. A cold glint appeared in her eyes. "I'm going to take action." Nia walked out of the restaurant and hailed a taxi. She sat in the back seat and gave the address, her mother's apartment on the other side of the city. The driver nodded and pulled away. She took her phone out of her purse. The screen was glowing with notifications. 5 missed calls from Julian. Nia declined the call and turned off the sound. She didn't need his explanations, his lies, his excuses. The car wound through the evening streets. The lights of storefronts, silhouettes of passers-by, traffic lights flashed outside the window. An ordinary evening of an ordinary day. Only for Nia, everything had changed forever. The phone vibrated again. Julian. She looked at the screen and rejected the call. A minute later, he called again, and again, and again. "Persistent boyfriend you got there," the driver noted, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Not a boyfriend," Nia replied quietly. "Husband. Ex-husband." She arrived at her mother's house and paid the driver, went up to the 3rd floor and rang the doorbell. Her mother opened almost immediately, in a robe and slippers, clearly getting ready for bed. "Nia, baby." She looked surprised at her daughter in an evening gown. "What happened?" "Can I crash here tonight?" Nia was barely holding back tears. "Of course, honey, come in." Her mother hugged her and led her into the apartment. "What happened? Did you fight with Julian?" "Worse." Nia walked into the living room and sank onto the sofa. "He was cheating on me. For 1.5 years. She's having his baby." Her mother froze with a cup of tea in her hands. What? Yes, Naya nodded. This morning, she came to my house, said she's pregnant, and that Julian will choose her. Lord have mercy. Her mother put the cup on the table and sat next to her daughter. Nia, I always felt there was something wrong with that Julian, but you loved him so much. Loved. Naya laughed bitterly. And he used that. He didn't just cheat. He was stealing my designs, Mom. All these years he built a career on my ideas. Her mother hugged her daughter, and Naya finally allowed herself to sob. They sat like that for a long time, until the tears dried up. What are you going to do? Her mother asked quietly. Nia wiped her eyes, took the cup of cold tea from the table, and took a sip. I'm going to fight, she said firmly. I have proof. My old sketchbooks, dates, files. I'm going to call the owner of his company and tell him everything. Are you sure? Her mother squeezed her hand. It won't be easy. I'm sure. Nia looked her mother in the eyes. I've been silent too long allowed him to control my life. It's time to end this. She took her laptop and opened it. All night, Nia gathered evidence, scanned old sketches from her albums, found saved files with creation dates, wrote down all the projects Julian had realized in recent years. The phone kept blowing up with calls. Julian called every half hour, then started texting. Nia, where are you? Answer me, please. I'm worried. What happened, baby? Let's talk. Don't be silent. You're scaring me. Nia didn't reply. She worked methodically, checking dates, matching projects with her sketches. The shopping mall, her idea from a year ago. The office building, a project from 2 years ago. The condo complex, 3 years ago. Everything matched. Every major project of Julian's was based on her work. By morning, she had a full folder of evidence. Nia looked at the clock, 6:30. She opened the website of the company where Julian worked and found the management contacts. Mr. Sterling Caldwell, CEO. Office phone, email. Nia dialed the number. Rings, 1, 2, 3. Hello? A tired male voice answered. Mr. Caldwell, good morning. My name is Nia Mercer Thorpe. I am the wife of your employee, Julian Thorpe, she began, trying to speak evenly and confidently. I need to meet with you. It is very important. It concerns plagiarism and theft of intellectual property. A pause hung in the air. What are you talking about? His voice became guarded. My husband used my architectural designs and passed them off as his own work. Nia gripped the phone tighter. I have all the proof. Originals with dates, sketches, files. I can come to your office and show you everything. That is a serious accusation, Mr. Caldwell pronounced slowly. I know, and I am ready to take responsibility for my words, Nia replied. But first, I ask you to look at the evidence. Another pause. All right, the CEO finally decided. Come in today at 10 a.m. I'll be expecting you in my office, and bring everything you have. Thank you. Nia felt her stomach churn with nerves. I'll be there. She hung up and looked at her mother, who was sitting in the armchair watching her. Are you really going to do this? She asked quietly. Yes, Nia nodded. I already did. At 9 o'clock, Nia called a taxi. She went home. Julian was already gone. She changed into a sharp suit she had once worn for her thesis defense, gathered all the documents in a folder, and headed to the office. The company building was impressive. Glass and concrete, modern design, a spacious lobby with marble floors. Nia had never been here. Julian never invited her to his work. She walked up to the reception desk. Good morning. I'm here to see Mr. Sterling Caldwell, Nia Mercer. I have an appointment at 10. The girl checked the list and nodded. Go right ahead. 7th floor, office 701, elevators on the right. Nia went up in the elevator. Her heart was beating so hard it seemed like it could be heard across the entire floor. She found the right office and knocked. Come in. She opened the door. A spacious office with panoramic windows. Behind a massive desk sat a man in his 50s in a tailored suit with graying hair and attentive gray eyes. "Mrs. Thorpe?" He stood up and extended a hand. "Yes." She shook his hand. "Thank you for agreeing to hear me out." "Have a seat." Mr. Caldwell pointed to the chair opposite. "I've called our general counsel. He'll be here shortly. If this is truly serious, we'll need a specialist." A few minutes later, a man in a dark suit with a briefcase entered the office. "Michael Andrews, our attorney," the director introduced him. Nia opened the folder and began laying out documents on the table. Sketches, printouts of files with creation dates, photos of Julian's realized projects, a comparison chart. "This is the Italian restaurant." She placed the sketch next to the photo of the finished building. "I drew this a year ago. Here is the date in the file. October 23rd of last year. The restaurant opened in August of this year. The project is claimed as Julian Thorpe's work." Mr. Caldwell leaned over the documents, studying them carefully. "Go on." "The shopping mall." Nia placed the next set down. "My sketch from April, 2 years ago. Completed 6 months ago. Author, Julian Thorpe." She laid out project after project. Office building, residential complex, renovation of an old factory into lofts. All her ideas, all stolen. The lawyer made notes in a notepad. The director frowned more and more. "And you claim that your husband used these designs without your consent?" the lawyer clarified. "Yes," Nia said firmly. "I drew them for myself, just as a hobby. Sometimes I showed them to him. He said it was interesting, but I didn't even suspect he was using them in his work, until recently." "What happened recently?" Mr. Caldwell asked. "I accidentally found out about the Italian restaurant from an acquaintance." Nia clenched her hands into fists. "And then I started digging deeper and realized the scale. He stole everything, my entire body of work for these years." The director leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. "This is a very serious accusation. If this is true, then we are dealing with plagiarism, copyright infringement, and fraud." "I am ready to undergo any examination," Nia said. "File dating, handwriting analysis on the sketches, anything. I am telling the truth." "Good." Mr. Caldwell nodded. "We need to talk to Julian. Hear his side too. He should be in this morning." "Michael, get him in here." The lawyer took out his phone and dialed a number. "Julian, good morning. Are you in the office? Come to the CEO's office. Urgently. Yes, now." They waited in silence. Nia felt her palms getting damp from anxiety. Now she would see him. Now he would know that she had exposed everything. 5 minutes later, the door swung open. Julian walked into the office with a smile, which instantly vanished when he saw Nia. He froze in the doorway. "What? What is she doing here?" "Julian, have a seat," Mr. Caldwell pronounced coldly. "We have something to discuss." Julian slowly walked into the office and sat in a free chair, not taking his eyes off Nia. On his face, bewilderment was mixed with fear. "That is exactly what we want to sort out." The director pointed to the documents laid out on the table. "Your wife has informed us that you have been stealing her ideas and passing them off as your own. She has proof." Julian looked at the table, and Nia saw his face go pale. He recognized the projects, recognized her sketches. "And you're listening to this nonsense?" He tried to laugh, but the laugh came out strained. "Mr. Caldwell, you know me. I've been working at the company for 5 years. All these projects I developed myself." "Nonsense?" The lawyer calmly joined the conversation. "Julian, believe me, there is ample evidence that you stole these designs. Creation dates of files, original sketches, matching down to the smallest details. You are facing a criminal case for plagiarism and copyright theft, and that, by the way, carries a significant prison term for fraud of this magnitude." Julian opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands started shaking. He looked at Nia. "Nia, we're family. Why are you doing this?" "Because," she looked him in the eyes, "you betrayed me. You stole my ideas. You cheated on me for 1.5 years. Your mistress is pregnant. And you're still asking why I'm doing this? Julian paled even more. How do you... She told me everything herself, Naya said coldly. Came to my house yesterday morning. A very nice girl. You're Vanessa. Mr. Caldwell stood up abruptly. Vanessa? Vanessa Banks, our account manager? The very one, Naya nodded. I don't need lying employees, the director exploded, slamming his fist on the table. Julian, you are fired. Immediately. Pack your things and leave the building. Security will escort you out. Mr. Caldwell, wait! Julian jumped up. Let me explain. You'll explain in court, the director cut him off. Michael, prepare the lawsuit. We are suing him for damage to the company's reputation and for fraud. And you, Mrs. Mercer? He turned to her. Are you ready to work for us? We need a good architect, the true author of these projects. Naya was taken aback for a second. Me? Yes, of course. Excellent. Mr. Caldwell extended his hand to her. Welcome to the team. HR will handle the paperwork today. You will take Julian's position. Julian stood in the middle of the office, white as a sheet, unable to utter a word. Nia looked at him one last time, at the man she had loved for 7 years, who had betrayed her in every way possible. Goodbye, Julian, she said quietly. Security let him out of the office. The next month passed in a blur. Nia filed for divorce. Julian tried to call, write, beg for forgiveness. She didn't answer. The company sued him for fraud. Forensic analysis confirmed that all projects were created based on Naya's work. The case was clear-cut. The trial took place a month later. Julian tried to deny it, but there was too much evidence. The lawyers destroyed all his arguments one by one. The sentence was severe: 3 years in prison for grand fraud and theft of intellectual property. Nia sat in the courtroom and watched them lead her ex-husband away. She felt neither joy nor satisfaction, only emptiness and relief. But Nia's new life was just beginning. She worked at the company, creating new designs, realizing her own ideas. Her colleagues respected her. Management valued her. She finally became who she always wanted to be, a true architect, a professional in her field. And no one could ever take that away from her again. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is, so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now, and let's keep spending time together. Much love. See you soon.